Today's handy hint is for those of you who don't have a long arm quilting machine. If you've finished your quilt and now you've layered it and put it together and you want to quilt it really nicely and you haven't got the long arm, I'm going to show you how you can quilt in the ditch really easily. So when you come to quilt in the ditch, it's just a straight stitch, nothing fancy, and what you need to do is you need to stitch along your seam lines and all around in a straight line without your stitches showing. You don't want your stitches showing or going over the edge of your fabrics because it doesn't look very good. This piece here is a black and white little piece I put together. I've stitched in the ditch all the way down using black thread, so I've stitched on the black side using the black thread, and there's no seam, no stitches showing, and that's the finish you want to have. So I'm now going to go to the machine. I've got a practice piece here. I've chosen black and white because that's the most obvious when mistakes can happen. So I'll show you now how we can easily line up this seam to do a practically invisible stitch all the way down. If you have a walking foot, it's best to use the walking foot, and if you see there's a little gap in the middle of your walking foot, this plate here on the right, this edge here, is the edge that you need to line up with your seam. Now you can buy a foot for your machine that does say it's a stitch in the ditch foot, but I've found, I don't know if it's just me, but I've found it's just a little bit off, and I prefer now to do it this way. So what I will do is I will line that completely up there. It's lined up in the middle, and I'm going to stitch using white thread. Now I have ironed my dark seam, the seam to the dark side, and I'm going to stitch just down here in the middle of the seam. And just make sure that's lined up. I will drop my needle just to make sure, and you can see it's just a little bit off. There you go. I'm just lining up that foot right up, butting it right up to the black edge. Just follow the darker edge, and it should end up in a really nice line. There's your stitch line, right in the middle of where that first seam joins. You're not going to see any of that when you come to now put your quilt together and give it a press. It vanishes. So that's a real good handy hint that you can use to quilt your own quilts if you don't have a long arm. Just so you can see a bit closer, there's your stitch line, and I think that gives a lovely finish.